Hey guys, and welcome to a brand new series that I'm going to be starting on the channel where I'm going to be doing a NCAA Football 14 Dynasty on College Football Revamped. Yes, I got College Football Revamped and I'm so excited to play with it. But in terms of the team that I'm going to be using, I'm going to be using my favorite college football team, the Purdue Boilermakers. And the new head coach is going to be someone that you've definitely heard of before. Jeff Brom is done, and Drew Brees is in. Yes, Drew Brees has officially retired from the NFL, and he is now going to be the new head coach for his alma mater, Purdue. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go through and see what Drew Brees is all about. As you can see, I'm running a variation of the run and shoot, but it's more similar to a spread offense. There will be some running in there, but it's mostly going to be a spread offense. And on defense, we're going to be running a 4-3. And actually, I switch it later to a 4-3 multiple, but basically we're running a 4-3 defense. So what I did for the coach level, I started at level 3 instead of level 1, which is the default. But instead of making it normal speed, I decided to go with slow XP growth, just because I think that's a little bit easier for just what I actually want this to be. Just so it's a little bit slower of a grind, so that it's not as easy to just speed through and then you're done in 7 seasons. In terms of the gameplay and the game quality, I'm going to be going with offense on Heisman with defense on All-American, just because I'm a better offensive player than I am a defensive player. The min speed threshold is going to be at 20, and game length for quarters is going to be at 8 minutes. I think that's a really good balance in terms of getting a even and proper amount of snaps based off how college football actually works. And as you see here, I am doing my penalty sliders here, which are based off the sliders of someone who on the Operation Sports forum. I will put a link in the description for his sliders down below. So these are the rest of the penalty sliders. As you can see, some penalties just don't happen enough in this game. Some happen way too much. I wanted to base it off of that. I wanted to remove clipping as much as I possibly could, but I wanted to see more penalties that just don't exist in this game that really should. In terms of the user and the CPU sliders, I wanted to base those off the same thing as well. I was playing with the sliders I found on, I was playing with the All-American sliders that I found on the Operation Sports forum, and you know, there were just a couple parts here and there. I really did like the realism and a little bit of the challenge as well that was part of them, but I just thought that there was just a little bit too much, it was just a little bit too much inaccuracy from quarterbacks. So I wanted to, and the run defense was also way too strong. So I wanted to back that up a little bit, and I wanted to make our quarterbacks just a little bit better in terms of being able to throw footballs. So that's basically where it is. It's a small deviation from what the roster actually is, but that's basically what what the sliders are going to be for this dynasty. So as you can see, this is what we have right here. So now we're going to go over here to the custom conferences, and I'm going to base these off the exact real-life conferences that exist today. Of course, the ones that are currently in the game are the 2013 conferences with changed teams that are sometimes... A couple of the teams are changed because that's what College Football Revamped does, is they remove some of the teams that aren't relevant in college football, and they replace them with teams that are actually in conferences. So we get Charlotte, and we get Coastal, and we get Georgia Southern, and teams like that. So we remove the teams that aren't in conferences like UConn and New Mexico State and Idaho. And that's the thing that I really like about College Football Revamped. The one thing that I'm going to be doing that's different from 2020 is Notre Dame will not be in the ACC. They will be an independent team through the remainder and the duration of this entire challenge. And, well, it's simple. The main reason for that is simply because that was meant to be a one-year thing. That was meant to be a COVID thing. So that's what's going to stick. And every other conference is exactly how it's meant to be. I bumped most of the weeks where the conference games start backwards a little bit, simply so that I could get different matchups at the very beginning. Of course, you'll see later that the schedule is a little bit obnoxious with that. I said that for the Big Ten to start in week 5, and our first conference game is week 3, which I'm not a big fan of. In terms of the Big Ten protected rivalries, I went with what I would prefer the rivalries to be, which is Penn State, Nebraska. I wanted to get the Little Brown Jug and the Illibuck Trophy in these games, and then for the remainder, I picked Michigan with Wisconsin because those are the probably the most historic programs in them. And then I went with Rutgers with Northwestern and Maryland with Iowa. And of course, I changed the names of the divisions to East and West because, of course, I did, because that's how it's supposed to be. Now for everything else, another thing I did, every single conference, I moved the games back to at least week 3 to where they're going to start so I could get teams in the first 2 weeks based off what I wanted to. If I wanted to get some teams in there throughout this series that I hadn't before. And they did actually add a Pac-12 championship site in this game, which I really appreciate. I'm new to Revamped, so I hadn't seen this before. But yeah, there's a Pac-12 championship site, and it's the stadium in Nevada, which I really like. And then I kept all the protected rivalries for the SEC because, they're the same as they are in real life, and they're just simple. For the Sun Belt, I'm moving back to week 3, and it's the same thing for all those conferences. In terms of the automatic qualifiers, I deleted the automatic qualifier for the American. I, of course, kept the SEC as the Sugar Bowl, the Pac-12 as the Rose Bowl, and I moved the Big 12 to the Sugar Bowl as well, with Big 10 at the Rose Bowl and ACC in the Orange Bowl. And that's just how that all works out, and all the conferences, as you can see here, are exactly as they are supposed to be. Tie-ins are exactly what you want. So now we are coming over here and we are going to start up this brand new Dynasty mode, which I'm going to be showing every single game that I do for this on YouTube here. And welcome the new head coach for Purdue, Drew Brees. I'm so excited that I get to say that because it just seems so cool. The other thing that I wanted to show you is that we are going to make custom offensive coordinators and custom defensive coordinators. The custom offensive coordinator, instead of Brian Brom, because Jeff Brom is gone now, our new offensive coordinator is actually going to be a longtime NFL backup quarterback, Luke McCown. Luke McCown used to be the backup quarterback for Drew Brees in New Orleans, and I wanted to bring him over here because he has a good sense of how a professional offense should work. So I wanted to bring him in here to get his coaching career underway as an offensive coordinator for Purdue. And you see, we're going to be running a little bit more offense. We're going to be a little bit more aggressive than most teams, but it's not going to be a ton. And instead of Bob Diaco as the defensive coordinator, because that didn't work this year, we are going to be bringing in New Orleans Saints linebackers coach Michael Hodges, former college walk-on actually at Texas A&M. He was part of the heart and soul of that team, and I really hope he can bring that to us as the new defensive coordinator for Purdue, getting a little bit of an upgrade from professional linebackers coach to college defensive coordinator. Really looking forward to seeing what we can do here with Michael Hodges. Again, he's a young guy who, again, might end up getting a defensive coordinator job someday in the NFL. He's only 34 years old, and we're going to be running, of course, that 4-3 multiple that I mentioned beforehand. So now we've seen what's going on with our offensive and defensive coordinators. Of course, a lot of them have ties to the Saints, just like Drew Brees does. We're bringing that professional culture over to college football. So as you can see, in terms of the skill tree, I unlocked level 1 for antifreeze. I brought in 2 levels of scouting, and then for the defensive and offensive coordinators, I used the one that does less injury and less injury, and the one that's a lot better stamina. One thing I want to mention is that part of this Dynasty mode, I am going to restrict myself to where I have to alternate between game management and recruiting every single Coach XP threshold. So as we can see here, I'm going to be doing all the recruiting myself, and I'm turning off the assistants for all of that, which that's just basically recruiting. I'm going to be showing recruiting later in a later episode. I'm going to also be showing practice in a later episode. In terms of the red shirts, I thought about redshirting Michael Alamo, but I really like his traits and his ability to play as a backup quarterback this year. So I think that he's a guy who I can bring in if I ever need someone to get in traits. The bottom of the depth chart freshmen are going to be redshirted. Some of these guys were already listed as redshirts because the fact they were actually redshirted in real life. So I wanted to keep the ones that were redshirted in real life, and I decided to also add the ones that I wanted to redshirt in this game as well. So I just redshirted about a lot of freshmen, true freshmen at the bottom of the depth chart. was one thing that I just did a lot of, was redshirting true freshmen at the bottom of the depth chart. So we are going to show the actual depth chart now. The starting quarterback is going to be Jack Plummer with Alamo as the backup. In terms of Aiden O'Connell, I just don't like his traits enough. I don't think he has the athleticism in order to run this offense. And of course, on our team, we're going to be having David Bell as the number 1, and Rondale Moore is going to be listed as the number 3, but that basically just means he's going to be playing in the slot all the time. He's not going to be an outside receiver. He's going to be playing in the slot, and that's what the number 3 listing is for. I think that a lot of the other players are maybe a little bit overrated on this team. There's only one guy I changed, which was Rondale Moore was for some reason listed as an 87 overall on the roster, which is ridiculous considering how incredible he's been. He's only going to be here for 1 year because he declared for the draft, so he's going to be listed as a redshirt senior, even though he was a junior this year. But despite that, Rondale Moore is going to be listed as a 96 overall because I think that that's just more accurate to what he is. In terms of defense, I decided to make Jalen Alexander. He was listed as the number 2 middle linebacker because this team was originally listed as a 3-4 defense. But I decided to move him to 4-3 outside linebacker at right outside linebacker. And of course, if you're looking at the secondary, we have great secondary players between Mackey and Trice and Thieneman and Cam Allen. We have a backup kicker this year who's going to be starting next season, so that's nice. In terms of kick returner, we're going to be going with TJ Sheffield, and our punt returner is going to be Rondale Moore. Our punter is, of course, I believe it's Brooks Cormier, yeah. And our long snapper is going to be our backup left tackle, Will Bramall, and our kickoff guy is going to be Dellinger. So again, we're showing that. Next up, we're going to show the schedule. So we're playing 9 conference games as well as 2 Power 5 games. Week 2, we're going to be hosting Notre Dame. We're going to be going to TCU in Week 5. And in Week 9, right before we have to go to Ohio State, we are going to be hosting Troy. So we're playing 6 home games this year and 6 away games this year, as well as a bunch of games against ranked teams. In conference, a lot of teams are ranked. And because of that, our strength of schedule is listed as an A+. So really looking forward to seeing some of the games that we get to play in conference this year. Now we're going to see the team needs listed here. And we are listed as needing a fullback, but we don't have a ton of needs on offense because we don't have a ton of seniors. We do need some defensive tackles as well as a strong safety. That's what we're going to be targeting in terms of recruiting. The big thing that I want to mention in terms of recruiting this year is the fact that we are going to be going after a lot of players from our pipelines. And our pipelines right now are Indiana, Texas, Michigan, and Ohio. The other places I want to add as pipelines are Kentucky and Illinois. And it would be interesting if we also added Florida as well as a pipeline. But that's not a necessity. But I want to get those extra pipelines in there as well to keep those 6 states as states where we get pipelines. Indiana, Michigan, Ohio, and Illinois and Kentucky are all close, but I also want to really add Texas in there and keep Texas because there's a lot of talent there. And again, Drew Brees is from Texas, so I want him to be able to scout players from his state to come to Purdue. Well, that's going to be it for episode 1. I hope you enjoyed watching. I hope you're really excited for what's coming next. Episode 2 is going to be a practice highlights episode where I go over the starting quarterback job battle between Alamo and Plummer. And episode 3 is going to be our first game. It's going to be a game at home against number 9 ranked Notre Dame. I hope you are excited for that one. I know I'm excited for that one. This is my first time ever doing any sort of Dynasty mode where I'm uploading videos to YouTube with all the editing stuff. So I'm not really used to this, but I think it's going to be fun. I'm really excited for what's coming next. And I hope you are excited for what's coming next too. I appreciate you watching this. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe down below. And as always, boiler up, hammer down. See you next time.